Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi there. Welcome to the 58th episode of A Couple Takes on MS. Hi, this is Dan Digman.
And hi, it's me, Jennifer Digman.
And welcome to this show, this 58th episode, A Couple Takes on MS. Jennifer and I both have multiple sclerosis. We are a married couple living with multiple sclerosis. Mine is relapsing remitting.
And mine is secondary progressive. I've been a wheelchair user for the past 16 years. I have not been able to walk. And despite that, or in spite of that, I don't know which is the best way to say.
In spite to spite.
But I met my gorgeous husband, Dan, and we've been muddling through this MS world together. And that's why we're here today, is just to talk about...
Well, what we're talking about today is lost or found. What's your MS friend focus? And we're talking about how, once you're diagnosed with MS, we hear, we see, we talk about just the number of friends we've lost because of the disease. But then if you take a step back, look at the number of friends you have gained because of the disease. And how did this even come up here, love?
Well, I was sending Christmas cards, as the time of the year is appropriate to write your Christmas cards. And boy, I sounded like I had a really, really strong accent there. I was working on our Christmas cards, and I noticed just all the number, and I'm not saying this like look at us, but just the number of friends that we have had. Dan and I have been married 13 years, and we've managed to keep a number of friends throughout our marriage and gain a number more. And so writing out Christmas cards, while somewhat labor intensive for those of us with MS, was worth it just to remember and think about our friends.
And I think that's the question is, how have you lost friends because of your multiple sclerosis?
Because of my MS. Any people that are no longer in my life, and this may sound too simple of an answer, but any quote-unquote friends that were in my life that after my diagnosis couldn't handle it or couldn't deal with me and my MS, they weren't real friends to begin with. Do you know what I'm saying?
I totally know what you're saying. And then it's always a question of, were they really your friends? And how do you handle that then? Or how do you know? Because it's really interesting just how, when we talk, and we being everybody, talk about friends and talk about growing up, distance, and you always say, you get together with the friends you haven't seen in years, and it's like, we should get together more often. But it's just like, during that time that you weren't talking, it did not mean that you were not a friend.
No, and I think sending Christmas cards is a perfect example of that. I have very dear friends that I will go 6 months, 9 months without speaking to, and it doesn't mean that we're not good friends. It just means that their lives are busy, our lives are busy, but in the end, they're still very dear friends to both of us. I mean, you, Dan, have you lost friends since you were diagnosed? Boy, that was a long sigh.
Well, I'm just thinking, have I lost any friends? Well, and I think that's okay. So let's talk about this now. We're just analyzing, defining what is and isn't a friend. But it's just like when you have a friend, it's not like having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, because there's like a legitimate relationship.
Like
There's
a
like a
title.
sanction. Yes, it's like you are my girlfriend.
You are my title.
Yes, it's like I own you kind of thing. But not really. But I mean,
No,
when you're
relationship.
dating, you're married, whatever. I mean, if and so, but
Again,
then
it's all about the title.
yeah, the title. So then, like when you have just not just a friend, but a friend, how is that? When is it determined that this friendship is over because you have multiple sclerosis, or is that something? And maybe that's where we have never had that experience where a friend has said, I don't think I can hang with you anymore because of your MS. And that's where, for everybody
We've
listening.
been very fortunate.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. But I mean, for anybody out there listening, has that happened to you? I mean, look us up on our website. It's danandjenniferdigman.com, or check in with us on Twitter at danjendig. Just let us know. I mean, how does that happen when somebody just up and decides, I don't want to be friends with you, specifically because of multiple sclerosis or because you can't do what you once could do?
I can imagine that, knowing for me and looking at my friendships, I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago when I was in college and developing some of my closest and dearest friendships. Those women, they're not the same person they were when we were in college 20 years ago. And they don't have MS, and I'm not the same person as I was 20 years ago, and I do have MS. Just naturally people change. I imagine giving birth to children, or having to move or develop more responsibility with your employment, or acquiring a disease like MS changes people. But you know what I'm saying? But we're not the same people sometimes, and maybe friendships just naturally fade away, and it's not necessarily that you have the MS. But if you can't do the same things that you used to do, I mean, maybe your interests aren't the same. When I was 23 years old, I was up for going to the bar 4 nights a week. But now at 44, I'm up for staying in and watching television 4 nights a week and being with my husband.
And being with your husband then, and that's where I've changed. Whereas when I was in college, I'm like, I've got to get my homework done. I have to study. I have a test. I have this. I need to work on the calf. Blah blah blah. I can't go out tonight. Now, 20 some years later, I'm like, let's go to the bar. What are we doing tonight? Let's make it epic. Let's go. And I think that's where, and it's just the reality. I don't have, they're my friends, but I don't hang with any of my college friends anymore because, granted, I moved, 550 miles away from, any of my college friends. So we make new friends, and I think that's where it's not to say.
I can't help but think about a Girl Scout song. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. Just your friends, your college friends, are still your very dear friends.
They're still my friends.
They're just 550 miles away.
Well, and I think that's kind of the thing with, you lose touch, you lose contact, but it's never because, it hasn't been because of the multiple sclerosis.
I will say with one caveat.
Yes.
No one wants to just talk about MS. And I have the disease and you have the disease, and we talk about it for a half an hour on our radio shows, or we talk about it at our support group meetings, or
our blog.
We do talk about it because it is, let's be honest, to any of you out there living with MS or another chronic illness, or as a caregiver for a loved one with MS, it's a big deal. It's a big part of your life. But in order to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. And you can't, I mean, I've noticed it in my own life, you can't just talk about MS the whole time.
I've likened it, in terms of like what kind of role does multiple sclerosis play in your life, and is MS think of it as a movie? Is MS the lead character? Is it a supporting cast? Is it an extra in the crowd?
That's very deep.
And well, I'm thinking about it, but it is. I mean,
That is
and
true. That's good.
to me, I would give for my life. It's like MS would be a supporting cast member, supporting, but not like a lead supporting. I mean, obviously it's there, but I don't ever let MS be the focus of what it is I'm doing with my friends. All it is just like a transition. It's like they know that it's got to be an accessible place for you and for me.
Right, thank you.
And ideally has a bathroom close by.
Right.
But other than that,
But I going with your movie and your analogy,
yes,
that your MS is a supporting character in your relationship with your friends, sometimes, and I think everyone could probably agree, there are times that MS is the starring performer, and those could be the moments when you're having an exacerbation, or those could be for the moment when your mobility is a little more challenged. And for those, Brad Pitt's an actor. He plays how many different characters because he plays different roles. I'm not saying you need to play different roles, but you need to, in my mind, I think we all should realize MS can't always be your starring character. Brad Pitt plays Meet Joe Black 100 years ago, and he's the main actor. But then he's in, what's that movie?
Sleepers.
Sleepers, where he's a supporting character. So in those days, your MS, does that work for you?
Yeah,
That
I think so. It's just like how
can't
much.
always take the starring role with your friendships.
Absolutely, and I think that's the big thing, and that's where, when you talk about, to have good friends, you need to be a good friend, and I think that's where is there a potential that you let MS take the lead role to where I liken it to when you see the stuff in the movies, or you see a character or something, or if you've had friends where maybe there's a guy and his girlfriend broke up with him, and for weeks, months, years, you can't go out with this guy of what he's going to sit and commiserate about his ex-girlfriend who dumped him. Right. And so then every time he sees a girl in the bar or talks about a girl, you're talking about your relationship, he keeps bringing that up. Eventually, I'm not going to want to hang out with that guy anymore. I'm still a friend, but I'm just thinking, it's like total buzzkill. I'm just thinking, if anything, the one thing that I've always tried to do with my life with MS is I never wanted the MS to be a buzzkill, and I don't want it to kill, and I don't mean just with the alcohol, but I mean but just the buzz of happiness in life, and I don't want it to ruin my buzz. Why would I want to go? And if I'm a friend, I don't want to bring my friends down all the time. Obviously, we have bad days, and that's what friends are there for, who will help you through these things. But it's just like, we have to find those happy mediums.
And that is something, if we're perfectly honest, we both have been living with the disease for almost 2 decades.
True.
It takes time to figure that out. I know when I was first diagnosed, it was pretty much all I wanted to think about. Thus all I wanted to talk about. But now, 20 years after my diagnosis, when I see friends from college, it typically is at the MS walk, where the overarching reason that we're there is for multiple sclerosis, to fight this disease. But we talk about everything else besides MS when we're together, kind of like our support group, our self-help group, where we get together and we talk about life, and then at the very end we're like, oh, maybe we should talk about MS right now, because they're good friends in our group. And I'm sure many of you out there deal with that too, that yes, the MS can be something that brings you together, but there's so much more in life to talk about. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That was a total, I just kind of stream of consciousness.
Well,
there.
that is what we do as we're talking about friends and where it goes, because it's like the MS is what's there. I mean, you and I, we both have MS. We both, have been through a lot, and like you had talked about, living with it with 20 years. I know when I was first diagnosed, it was a big deal. And so it's like, for everybody out there, it's like, it doesn't mean you can't talk about MS, you can't do that. It's because I know, when I was first diagnosed, if it was my night to take a shot, if I had to take my
that was
my
huge.
injectable drug, that was like the biggest thing in the world. And
Stop everything.
it's just like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I better not drink a beer tonight because I have to take my shot. I'm taking my shot because of this, and I have to explain it. And I think that is that part of the I don't want to say the grieving process, or just the adjustment. It's a life adjustment.
Yes.
And so you have to get comfortable with it, and you need to talk about it. And that's not. I guess it's not. I don't want to make it sound like we're saying you can't ever talk about MS, because so much is relative to where it is in your life and how far into it. Because if you're just diagnosed, you're just coming to terms with a lot of the realities of this disease.
And I hope that you can talk to your friends about the reality of your disease.
And that's where you start determining who your true friends are, who want to hear, who are there and don't get tired. And it's just like, be a friend to another person as you would want them to be to you. And I think you just you grow together or you grow apart. And maybe it's such a thing. Maybe the people don't dislike you. It's just like they're just not ready to deal with it. And I think it's with that point, it's just like, then it is sad because
when you lose a friendship,
for none of your doing that happened, and they can't handle it. And it's like, be sad, but I mean, don't close yourself off to not finding new friends, because that gets back then to your Christmas card thing. And just look at how many on the list that you send cards to, that we get cards from, how many of those were the direct result and related and a result of your multiple sclerosis.
Our diagnosis, the people that think heavens have entered our lives and we've entered theirs, and we've found something in common, that being our MS or what our experience is. And those new friends, when it's easy to sit and think, oh, I used to be friends with this person and he or she can't deal with my MS. Well, don't look at that. Look at what you have right now. And this is where I'm looking at you, Dan, to just talk about your favorite or one of your favorite movies.
I always liken it to, and if you have not seen the movie Hoosiers, you need to see it. But when the team, he was Norman Dale was the basketball coach. He came in, and they had a superstar player that didn't go out for the team. And when they had their first pep rally for the season, and the small team of like maybe 6-7 people come out, and everyone's there and they're cheering, but then it gets quiet and they start to chant for the superstar player who didn't go out. They're saying, we want Jimmy, we want Jimmy. And Gene Hackman played the lead character, and he had a speech, and he said, something to the effect of, I hope, these men have been practicing every night. They deserve your respect, and I would rather hope you would appreciate and look to us for who we are rather than who we are not. And so it's just like when you think of your friends, look at who you have and those who are, putting in the time and blood, sweat, and tears of being a friend, both as a listener and somebody who you would listen to, rather than being sad about the few who don't stick with
And
you.
I'm surprised that when you are talking and doing your Gene Hackman, the phrase, "this is your team," never came out of your mouth. But think about that. Like, your friends, who can you talk about your day-to-day realities, or who can talk about theirs with you? Can you listen to what they're saying? This is your team. These are your friends. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, reach out to those friends that maybe you haven't spoken with in a while. Just say, I'm thinking of you. And that is something. Sometimes maybe, you're the person living with the chronic illness, and maybe people are a little afraid to reach out to you. So reach out to them. Say, I'm still the same person I was when we were friends 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago. Just you put out that olive branch and say, this friendship was important to me, and try and maintain it. But then if you don't get the response that you want, I think of something you often say, Dan, you just have to, not to sound mean, but you have to cut your losses.
It's just a question of, and I've often felt this way, that we as people, especially people living with multiple sclerosis, we have just a limited supply of emotions, tears, care, frustrations, whatever. And so then it's just a question of, if I'm not worth that person's time, if my friendship isn't worth anything to them, well, then why would I want to give them any of my time and frustration? And you move on. It's just like, okay, that's sad. I am sad about that, but I have so many other opportunities. And I mean, that's where, we can put that in there, that I did have an ex-wife, and it's just like, and I never, once it was over, it's just like, I'm moving on.
Well, you have to emotionally invest where you are going to get return on investment. If I'm reaching out time and time again to a spouse, to a friend, to a family member that just can't meet you where you are, or that you can't meet where you are, you have to sometimes say, this is important, but if it's not working, I can't expend my energy. I have to conserve what I have and save it for the best in my life, which is, maybe sounds selfish, but you have to really, because you are living with a chronic illness, and you have to be your best self. Treat yourself well, and if you keep and conserve your energy and your resources, then hopefully you'll have more to put out there.
And to find the new friends and to be a good friend to the new people, I think that's where, our lives, we say we haven't changed, but I mean, I'm not the same person I was when I was in college several years ago, right?
Right. Now, come on, Dan. I outed my age, so everybody knows
I was at college like 25 years ago. But ouch.
That's a little
but
painful.
we're not the same people, and how can we expect everything to retrofit where we are in our lives right here today? And some of the friends I had 25 years ago, we've at least grown together, at least stayed in touch long enough to know where because the reality is you still are the same person. I mean, at
At
the
the
core,
core,
at
yeah.
the core, and they're so thing. But life things change, and so that's just, I guess it's just MS is a reality, but it's not a. It can't be the sole focus. Obviously, it's again. I would feel like the supporting role. It's a part of who we are. It's like the set. It's like.
Yeah, and there is more to us than just our MS, and we need to focus on that and, just reach out to your friends and let your friends reach out to you. If you want good friends, you have to be a good friend.
And I think that's where, when we're talking about, the lost and found, I can say that, even for the friends I have lost, certainly I've gained astronomically more, because of, just being open and getting the friends to catch you where you are at this moment in your life.
Absolutely, I agree. And just keep yourself open and stay engaged, and hopefully your friends will find you and you can find them. And we're always here, Dan and I, with our blog at Dan and Jennifer Digman, or we are on Twitter at Dan and Jen Dig.
Yes, and look us up. And thanks again to the MS&Me Radio Network for having us. But yeah, check in with us. Let us know about your friendships. What's been lost, what's been found, and how have you mustered
Moved
through
forward,
and made it possible. So, but again, thanks to the MS&Me Radio Network for having us. Thanks for joining us again. And thanks to the Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme song for our show, A Couple Takes on MS. This has been Dan Digman
And Jennifer Digman.
Take care.